Like it or not, every organization creates an employee experience. And in many cases, those experiences are downright terrible. So what I want to talk about today are three things that organizations can do to significantly improve their employee experience and ultimately ensure they have great talent doing great things every single day.
Welcome to Leadership Briefings, brought to you by Spectrum Organizational Development, bringing you the latest in leadership, human resources, and business news. Today's topic: the three most overlooked aspects of employee experience.
When I boil it down, what I do day in and day out for my clients is help them curate their employee experience. Every year we survey tens of thousands of employees around the world for a variety of different companies, and what that is effectively is a measurement of the effectiveness of the employee experience within that organization. So while you look at employee engagement, employee satisfaction surveys, you have to remember as an organization, what you're measuring is how your employees experience your organization throughout the course of the year. And it is, at the end of the day, is that a positive experience or a negative experience? So what organizations have been doing for decades is focusing on the customer experience. And while there's tremendous progress happening around the employee experience these days, there are a lot of aspects that the HR function or the organizational development function really need to take in consideration when they're curating this employee experience concept. Sure, I've seen so many organizations that have slides in the lobby. I've seen beer on tap. I've seen beer carts that go around desk to desk to ensure that employees have access to really fun and exciting things. Foosball tables, video games, great offsite excursions, and those sorts of things. And at the end of the day, a lot of organizations, when they think about the concept of employee experience, they focus on the attractors. What sorts of things are going to attract great talent to our organization? But often they fail to identify certain key detractors. What sorts of things negatively impact your employees day in and day out? And while they try to measure that on some employee surveys, oftentimes that gets lost. So like I said, there are kind of three major detractors that organizations overlook, or they're not really detractors. They could be attractors if you do them properly, but in most cases they end up being detractors. So what I want to talk about today are these three kind of key focus areas, so that you as an OD professional or an HR professional can really see the employee experience as a kind of a fulsome, holistic system within your organization, and ensure that you attract great talent, you retain great talent, and you engage great talent day in and day out. So let's get to those three things right now, and hopefully we can help you help your employees. The first of these three areas I want to address is what I'm going to call facilities. And it's realizing that you go to work every day, and wherever that is, that can be a positive or a negative experience for your employees. And look around, it's summertime, and for most people they think patios, they think sandals, they think beach time. But what happens, for example, in a lot of organizations, and you've seen this, the number one article of clothing that comes out on display as soon as summer hits is sweaters. That's right, the HVAC system kicks in and it's freezing in most office buildings. So, for example, if you're looking at creating an experience that people love and are positive about and can really work effectively, look at kind of the environment. Is it too hot, too cold, too drafty? All of those things, for starters, you can really talk to your property manager or your facility staff and really talk to them about how they can work with you as an HR or an OD professional to ensure that your employees are comfortable day in and day out, because that way they can be more effective. But I've heard so many times where people say that they're absolutely frozen all summer long, and obviously that should not be the case. Another thing we're talking about facilities is around accessibility. Obviously, employees with special needs require certain aspects that your organization may overlook. And I've seen lots of ramps getting into front doors. I've looked at automatic doors and those sorts of things, but oftentimes it stops there. Kitchen setups, washroom facilities, and then other things. For example, if you're going to that offsite event, you're going to the company retreat, is that facility accessible? Are your all of your employees going to have the same positive experience? So kind of keep those sorts of things in mind and look at your organization from the eyes of each different employee you may encounter day in and day out. And I hate to be picking on what seems like I'm picking on the facilities people, but that's not their fault, because this has to be a team effort. The next thing you want to deal with is kind of the overall layout, deciding where your employees are going to work, how close they're going to work together, how different departments in the organization can interact with each other. I've heard a lot of videos that talk about if employees are on a different floor, they might as well be in a different location altogether. So while it's not feasible to have everybody on the same floor, understanding which departments need to interact most often to ensure there's good collaboration is looking at kind of the layout of the space. And speaking of layout, I've seen so many organizations that are putting these kind of collaboration spaces where there's kind of just this space set out where there's sofas and chalkboards or whiteboards or whatever it is, where they're hoping people just randomly collide and sit down in those spaces. But I've never actually seen somebody use those spaces. And I think a lot of times companies think, let's put it in the middle so people see it. But I think that these collaboration spaces need to be off to the side so they're not disrupting other employees, or they don't look like they're just kind of wasting time. And that's why I think a lot of people don't use those spaces, because collaboration takes time, innovation takes time. And a lot of times that comes out of random conversations. So all these collaboration spaces are a great idea to make sure that employees can have those random encounters to have synergies and whatever other word you want to use to really come up with some new ideas. Oftentimes that's just not going to work when the collaboration space is just outside of the boss's office and the boss is kind of giving you those negative glares like get back to work. So that's another culture thing. We'll save that for a whole other video, but those collaboration spaces are great. The other thing to look at, and I've been in a lot of organizations where manufacturing, for example, I've seen startup meetings where there's a massive transfer press just smashing away, making wonderful parts. The problem is that the supervisor's trying to have a shift startup meeting and people can't hear what's going on, or people are listening to a smashing machine all day. So the acoustics, do people have proper ear protection? Is there a way to ensure your machines are adequately maintained so that noise is at a minimum, so there's no grinding or squealing or those sorts of noises? And at the far end of the extreme, is the sound, is it too dead? Is there too much acoustics dampening material in your facility that your office space sounds dead, and people are not inclined to make any noise for fear that they are the only one making noise? So look at those sorts of things as key things. So ensuring the HVAC system is great, making sure that accessibility is really addressed from end to end, making sure that you have a good layout that allows people to work together. Collaboration spaces really are there to help people collaborate and make sure people can hear what needs to be said. This obviously can go further and further down the chain, talking about furniture, ergonomics, proper lighting, and obviously safety. You want to make sure your employees are safe day in and day out. So that's part of that facilities piece. So if you're going to create a great employee experience, looking at these elements within the facilities realm will really help ensure that your employees have a great experience with your organization. I'm not going to say how long, because the more I think about it, the decades start to pile up and I get really sad. But at the beginning of my career, I started out in marketing, and don't get me wrong, I love marketing to this day, and I loved getting the message out to customers. I loved creating great campaigns to really engage people, and what I really loved was creating that customer experience from end to end. And I'm still passionate and still talk about it today in a variety of forums. And don't get mad, marketing people, but oftentimes the marketing department, their focus on creating a great customer experience often flies directly in the face of and impacts the internal employee experience. So what we want to talk about quickly is identifying how marketing needs to be addressed as part of the internal employee experience. And marketing is great at selling what your organization does. What the department needs to focus on is ensuring that the internal employees get that message as well. Because time and time again, I've heard from countless employees and organizations that they find out about promotions or sales or special offers from the customer, not from their internal marketing team. So that impacts how employees feel day in and day out. They want to serve their customer and they can't because they don't have all of the information. So OD and HR people, make sure you spend time with your marketing folks to make sure that they are in turn communicating throughout the organization to ensure that all of the employees know what's being said about your organization, about your brand, about its products. Because nobody likes mixed messages, nobody likes finding out too late in the transaction process. And nobody likes, especially when the marketing department really advertises your organization's weakness, and that flies in the face of what the employee themselves is able to deliver. So understand how marketing can benefit the customer experience just as much as the employee experience. And if those two programs can be linked via the marketing department, that's a fantastic outcome, because ultimately there can be just great synergies about making sure that the employee is engaged just as much as the customer is engaged, and ultimately your organization is going to survive and be successful long term. I'll let you in on a little secret. Nobody likes to feel stupid. So if your organization has policies and procedures in place that really kind of hold employees down, handcuff them from being effective day in and day out, that's going to negatively impact your employee experience. So what needs to happen is that you need to look at what sorts of policies and procedures are out there and start to identify some that may be redundant, some may be legacy, or no longer relevant to the organization, and start freeing up your employees to do what they do best. Steve Jobs said it beautifully: hire smart people and get out of the way, let them do what they do best. And organizations that really understand this ethic will have more highly engaged employees and ultimately create a better overall employee experience. Employees don't like to say, I don't know. Employees don't like to feel like they can't get to the bottom of things. So that comes down to making sure that your training and development people really help educate your employees on the business end to end, not just their functional responsibility, but who to hand things off to should there be an issue, what sort of people are available to provide assistance, to provide guidance, those sorts of things. But also, those policies and procedures that kind of nobody knows why you do them anymore, and they ultimately get employees to kind of say, I can't help you here. Those are the policies that need to change. Those are the procedures that need to be reviewed so that your employees feel free and empowered to make smart decisions and ultimately serve the customer more effectively. So if you can really identify kind of roadblocks and challenges along the way, your organization is going to be vastly more successful. Everyone loves the attractors. Everyone loves to talk about the great benefits package, the high salaries, the bring your dog to work day, the yoga classes, the organic food in the kitchen, the really cool loft space, whatever it is. Those are all the fun parts when you talk about creating a great employee experience. What I think a lot of organizations fail to do is really address those detractors. Who's walking around and being objective and deciding, wow, we need to change that because that's going to cost us in the long run. So my question to you is, where are you on the spectrum? Are you overly focused on the attractors when you're creating your employee experience? Are you identifying and really eliminating the detractors? Or are you just not even on the spectrum yet and you realize that your organization is just moving day to day and nobody's really got their eye on this sort of thing? And once you identify where you are, you can make some great progress in ensuring, again, like I've said, you're going to attract great talent, you're going to retain great talent, and you're going to engage great talent. So the more you focus on the employee experience as a holistic overall process, the better off you're going to be. So find where you are on the spectrum, get down to business to improve it day in and day out, and you're really going to be ahead of the game when it comes to employee experience.